on the dusty horizon, figures began to emerge. Men. Armed, moving like shadows, their weapons gleaming under the midday sun. They were coming. For the drum. For her. For blood. And there was nowhere left to run. The horns did not stop. They rose and fell in long, haunting notes, filling the village with fear. Women clutched their children, pulling them close. Men grabbed their spears, their faces grim. Even the animals sensed the danger, goats bleated, chickens scattered, and the village dogs barked wildly. Nora stood frozen at the entrance of her hut, her breath caught in her throat. The drum in her arm suddenly felt heavier, as if it carried the weight of the battle itself. She had not meant for this to happen. She had only wanted to feed her children. Elder Boko stood beside her, his face carved with deep lines of worry. His gaze was locked on the horizon, where dust clouds rose, carried by the marching feet of warriors. Zond. Bomodi. Both villages were coming. And they were coming for the drum. Nora's hands trembled as she clutched the drum tighter. Around her, the villagers moved quickly, gathering weapons, hiding the young ones, whispering hurried prayers to the ancestors. "This is not our fight," one of the men muttered. "Why should we suffer for something that is not ours?" Another spat onto the ground. "The woman has cursed us. She brought this upon us." Nora flinched. Shame burned through her, but she had no time to explain. Elder Boko turned sharply to the villagers. "Enough." His voice was strong despite his age. "Blame will not save us now. The warriors will be here soon." He looked at Nora, his dark eyes unreadable. "You must tell me everything. How did you find the drum?" Nora swallowed hard. "It was buried beneath a tree in the forest," she said. I only meant to find food. But when I touched it, it spoke to me." A murmur ran through the villagers. "The drum spoke," someone whispered. Elder Boko's eyes darkened. He reached out and ran his wrinkled fingers over the drum's surface. His lips moved silently, as if he was speaking to something unseen. After a long moment, he sighed. "This is no ordinary drum," he said. "This drum belongs to the gods of war. It chooses its keeper. And now, it has chosen you." Nora's breath caught. "No," she whispered. "I do not want it." Elder Boko gave her a sad look. "It does not matter what you want, child. The drum has decided." A sharp cry rang through the air. Then another. Nora's head snapped up. The warriors were here. They came in waves, their feet pounding against the dry earth. Warriors from both Zon and Bomodi, their faces painted, their spears raised. They did not pause to talk. There were no words left to speak. Only war. The first arrows flew, dark against the bright sky. A villager screamed. The people of Kundu, peaceful farmers and traders, had no choice but to defend themselves. They fought with whatever they had, knives, spears, even farming tools. Nora ducked into her hut, pressing the drum against her chest. Amoni and Kofi huddled in the corner, their small faces filled with terror. "Mama," Amoni whimpered. "I am scared." Nora knelt beside them, her voice shaking. "Stay here. Do not move, no matter what happens." Outside, the battle raged. Men clashed, their cries mixing with the sound of breaking wood and falling bodies. The air was thick with dust and blood. Nora squeezed her eyes shut. She had to do something. The drum had brought this upon them. Perhaps the drum could stop it. She hesitated, her fingers trembling. What if she struck it again? What would happen? The last time, the earth itself had seemed to respond. Would it bring peace? Or destruction? She did not know. But she had no choice. Nora took a deep breath, lifting the drum onto her lap. Then, with all the strength left in her, she struck it. The sound exploded through the air like a rolling storm. Deep. Powerful. Endless. Everything stopped. The battle. the cries, the wind. Even the birds in the trees fell silent. The ground beneath them trembled, not like before, but stronger, angrier. Then a voice filled the air. Enough. It was not a human voice. It was something deeper, something older. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The warriors staggered back, their faces frozen in fear. Their weapons shook in their hands. The villagers gasped. Some dropped to their knees. The drum glowed, a faint golden light tracing the carvings on its surface. Nora's breath caught. What had she done? Then, the voice spoke again. You fight over what does not belong to you. You spill blood for a power you do not understand. But the gods do not choose war lightly. If you continue, there will be no land left to fight for. The warriors of Zon and Bomodid looked at each other, confusion and fear in their eyes. Stillness stretched between them. And then, as if the earth itself had made its decision, the ground beneath them cracked. A deep line split through the battlefield, running between the two warring villages, growing wider and wider until neither side could cross. The warriors stumbled back, staring at the deep trench that now separated them. The war was over. Not because of peace, but because something greater had intervened. The silence hung heavy in the air. Nora sat frozen, her hand still on the drum. She could hardly believe what had just happened. The power of the drum was real. It was far beyond anything she could have imagined. She looked at Elder Boko, her voice barely a whisper. What do I do now? The old man sighed, his gaze lingering on the deep trench that had stopped the war. You must leave, he said. The drum has chosen you, but the world is not ready for its power. Nora's heart clenched. Leave. Elder Boko nodded. As long as you hold the drum, others will come for it. They will not stop. You must go before more blood is spilled. Tears burned Nora's eyes. She had only wanted to protect her children. Now, she would have to take them far from the only home they had ever known. But deep in her heart, she knew the elder was right. The drum was not meant to stay here. And neither was she. She reached for Amoni and Kofi, pulling them close. But as Nora looked down at the drum, she could not shake the feeling that her journey was only just beginning. Because somewhere, beyond the horizon, others were still searching for it. And they would not stop until they found her. Nora did not wait. The moment the trench split the battlefield in two, the warriors stood frozen, their weapons slack in their hands. The voice of the drum still echoed in the air, thick as smoke. The ground beneath them had spoken, and the message was clear. But Nora knew men were stubborn. They might have lowered their weapons, but the hunger in their eyes remained. This was not the end. This was only the beginning. If she stayed even a moment longer, they would come for her. For the drum. She had no time to waste. With her heart pounding, she grabbed Amoni and Kofi's hands, pulling them toward the forest. We must go, she whispered. Now. Her children did not question her. The fear in her eyes was enough. Amoni clutched her mother's arm, her small fingers digging into Nora's skin. Kofi stumbled on his little legs, but Nora did not stop. She could not. The trees were not far. If she could just reach them, they would have cover. Her feet moved swiftly over the dry earth, kicking up dust. She did not dare look back, but she felt the weight of many eyes on her back. And then, a voice. Stop her. The warriors had come to their senses. The chase begins. Nora ran. She did not think. She did not breathe. She only moved. Behind her, shouts rang through the air. Footsteps pounded against the ground. They were coming. Don't let her escape, someone bellowed. She pushed forward, forcing her tired legs to carry her faster. Amoni and Kofi struggled to keep up, but they did not complain. The trees loomed ahead, dark and welcoming. If she could just reach them. An arrow sliced through the air, landing inches from her feet. Nora gasped but did not stop. Another arrow. Closer this time. The warriors would not kill her, not yet. They needed the drum. But if she was caught, there would be no escape. Amoni tripped, her little body crashing to the ground. Nora skidded to a stop. Amoni. Tears welled in the girl's eyes, but she nodded quickly, trying to push herself up. Nora scooped her into her arms, adjusting the drum on her back. Kofi clung to her side, his tiny legs struggling to keep up. They were almost there. The trees were just steps away. And then, a shadow moved ahead. A man. A warrior from Zond. He stood between her and freedom, a spear clutched in his hand. His eyes locked onto the drum strapped to her back. Nora's stomach twisted. She had no weapon. No way to fight. She did the only thing she could. She ran straight at him. The warrior hesitated, his grip on the spear tightening. But Nora did not slow down. She was not a warrior. She was a mother. And she would not let her children be taken. At the last moment, she threw herself to the side, dodging the warrior's grasp. With all her strength, she slammed her shoulder into him. He staggered back, caught off guard. It was all she needed. She bolted past him, into the trees. Darkness swallowed them. The forest had taken them in. Nora did not stop running. Branches scraped at her skin. Roots twisted beneath her feet. But she did not slow down. She ran until the shouts behind her faded into the distance. Until the only sounds were her own ragged breaths and the quiet sniffles of her children. Only then did she stop. Her knees buckled, and she sank onto the damp earth, still clutching Amoni in her arms. For a long moment, none of them spoke. The forest was thick, its canopy blocking most of the sunlight. The air was damp, heavy with the scent of moss and wet leaves. Strange calls echoed in the distance, birds, or perhaps something else. Nora closed her eyes, trying to steady her racing heart. They were safe. For now. But she knew the warriors would not give up. They would hunt her. Hunt the drum. And if they found her, they would not let her go again. She took a deep breath, holding Amoni and Kofi close. "We must keep moving," she whispered. Amoni sniffled but nodded. Kofi buried his face into her side, too exhausted to speak. Nora pulled the drum from her back and set it on the ground. She had never hated an object so much. It had brought nothing but pain. But she could not leave it behind. It had chosen her. And she did not yet understand why. Night fell quickly in the forest. The air grew colder. The sounds of the day faded, replaced by the eerie hum of insects and the occasional distant growl of something unseen. Nora and her children huddled beneath a large tree, their bodies pressed together for warmth. She did not know where they were going. She only knew they had to keep moving. But even as exhaustion weighed on her, she could not sleep. Because somewhere in the distance, a drum was beating. Not hers. Another. Slow. Rhythmic. Calling. Her breath caught. She was not the only one who had heard it. Amoni stirred. "Mama," she whispered. "Who is playing the drum?" Nora's mouth was dry. "I don't know." But she had a terrible feeling. The drum was not calling for her. It was calling to something else. Something that had been waiting. And now, it was awake. What lies ahead? Nora held her children close, her heart pounding in her chest. The forest was silent now. Too silent. And in that stillness, she finally understood. She was no longer just running from warriors. She was running from something far older. Something that had been watching. Something that had been waiting for the drum to return. And now, it was coming. Nora did not sleep. She sat awake beneath the thick tree, her arms wrapped tightly around Amoni and Kofi. The forest around them was too still, too quiet. Only the distant sound of the drumbeat echoed through the night. It was not hers. Someone, was playing another drum. Calling. Nora's heart pounded in her chest. She did not know where to go. The warriors from Zond and Bomodi would still be searching for her, tracking her through the forest. But now, there was something else. Something worse. The drum she had found did not belong to any kingdom. It was older, wiser, and it was calling to something she did not understand. A wind moved through the trees, rustling the leaves in a slow whisper. The air grew colder. The hairs on Nora's arms stood on end. Then, a shadow moved. Not the shape of a man. Something taller, leaner, almost stretching. Nora held her breath. Amoni whimpered softly. Kofi buried his face into his mother's side, his small hands gripping her clothes. The shadow took a step forward. The leaves around it called, as if bowing to its presence. The air itself seemed to hum, thick with an unseen force. Nora could not run. She knew, deep in her bones, that there was nowhere to go. The shadow moved closer. Then, in a voice that was neither loud nor quiet, neither old nor young, it spoke. You should not have touched the drum. Nora's throat tightened. She wanted to speak. To explain. To beg. But no words came. The figure stepped into the dim moonlight, revealing itself. It was not a man. Not a beast. It was both. Tall and thin, with skin the color of old wood, its arms were long, its fingers stretching like twisted roots. Its eyes, dark, endless, held the weight of centuries. It looked at Nora. At the drum. Then it tilted its head. Do you know what you carry? Nora swallowed. Her hands tightened around the drum. She shook her head. The figure took another step forward. Its feet did not disturb the ground. That is the drum of the ancestors. It is not meant for mortal hands. The wind picked up, swirling leaves around them. Nora's heart pounded. I did not know, she whispered. I found it in the forest. I only wanted food for my children. The figure studied her. Then, slowly, it crouched to her level. Its dark eyes fixed on Nora. For a long moment, it did not speak. The wind howled softly through the trees, but even nature itself seemed to wait for its judgment. Nora clutched the drum tighter. Please, she whispered. I did not know what it was. The spirit did not blink. And yet, the drum chose you. A cold chill ran through her. Chose me. The spirit's long fingers traced the air, as if pulling unseen threads. The glow of the drum flickered, responding to something deep and ancient. The drum is a vessel, the spirit said. A bridge between worlds. It was never meant for war. But men do not listen. Nora swallowed hard. The warriors. They are blind. They think the drum holds power. But the power is not in the drum. It is in the hands that beat it. The words sent a shiver down Nora's spine. All this time, she had thought the drum itself was dangerous. But the spirit was telling her something else. She had been the one to awaken it. The power had responded to her. The spirit tilted its head. The drum does not choose lightly. And it does not choose without purpose. Nora shook her head. I am no one. Just a mother. Just. You are more than that now. The wind howled louder, carrying voices from far away, angry, desperate. The warriors of Zond and Bomodi were still searching. They would not stop. The spirit's gaze flickered toward the distant sounds. They will come, it said. And they will fight again. Nora felt a deep ache in her chest. So much death. So much hunger for something they did not even understand. She looked down at the drum, at the carvings she had never taken the time to truly see. They were not just decorations. They told a story. A history. A warning. The drum was not meant for war. It was meant to guide. To protect. And now, it had chosen her. Nora met the spirit's gaze. What must I do? For the first time, the spirit smiled. End it. The warriors came before dawn. Nora could hear them long before she saw them, feet pounding against the earth, voices sharp with anger. They had found her trail. She stood in the clearing, waiting. Amoni and Kofi clung to her legs, their eyes wide with fear. But Nora no longer felt afraid. The spirit's words echoed in her mind. The power is not in the drum. It is in the hands that beat it. She lifted the drum, her fingers steady. The first warrior burst through the trees, his spear raised. Others followed, eyes locked onto her prize. She did not run. She did not hide. She struck the drum. The sound exploded through the air, louder than thunder, deeper than the earth itself. The warriors staggered, dropping their weapons. The trees shivered. The ground trembled. And then, the wind changed. A great force swept through the clearing, pressing down on them like unseen hands. The warriors gasped, their bodies frozen in place. Then, from the shadows of the forest, figures emerged. Not men. Not spirits. Something in between. The ancestors. They stood tall, their eyes burning with the wisdom of those who had walked the earth long before this war began. Nora did not need to speak. The drum had already spoken for her. The ancestors moved through the warriors, their torchlight as mist, heavy as mountains. The warriors trembled. They had spent years fighting over something they did not understand. Now, they understood. The power was never theirs to claim. One by one, the warriors lowered their heads. The war was over. Not by force, but by truth. Nora felt the weight lift from her chest. The spirit of the drum had been waiting for someone to listen. And she had. A new beginning. The warriors of Zond and Bomodi returned to their villages, silent and humbled. The battle that had nearly destroyed them had ended not with blood, but with understanding. Nora stood at the edge of the forest, the drum still in her hands. The spirit watched her, its form now flickering, as if it was becoming one with the wind itself. "It is done," it said. Nora looked down at the drum. It no longer glowed. The power had returned to where it belonged. She turned to Amoni and Kofi, brushing a hand over their hair. They had survived. They had found something greater than safety. They had found peace. Nora turned back to the spirit, but it was already fading, its voice barely a whisper. "Remember, the drum only beats for those who truly listen." And then, it was gone. Nora took a deep breath. The war was over. The drum had spoken. And now, for the first time in a long, long time, the land was silent and peace reigned. Nora walked through the familiar dirt path that led to her village, her children by her side. The drum, now silent, rested on her back. The air was fresh, carrying the scent of rain-soaked earth and the distant aroma of cooking fires. She had left as a poor widow, unknown and struggling. She returned as the woman who had ended a war. Subscribe to Ogologo the Storyteller for more interesting African folktales.